Hello, Steve89. Well, we've had a bit of an announcement on the Transformers film front from Paramount. Now, basically, the new film is going to be called Transformers Rise of the Beasts, and it's going to be released a year from now, June 24th, 2022. So that's only a year away. So how they're going to... Basically, they announced the start of production and announced the release date. So, I mean, I'm a bit on the fence here. I'm not sure what to make of this. Now, with Transformers, I'm a fan of G1. I hated Beast Wars. I saw it briefly. It was bad CGI. I never watched it. It didn't make any sense. The idea of the Transformers... The idea of the Dinobots and the Predacons were bad enough in the G1 continuity and everything. But Beast Wars was just too much. I couldn't stomach it. It was basically some toy exec saying, hey, how can we make Transformers cool again? How about making them all dinosaurs? And just, yeah, some kids were stupid enough to fall for that in the 90s, but yeah. So, I mean, I suffered through Armada and all that, waiting, and then we got the new films, and the first film was great. I actually liked it. It had heart. It was about a boy and his robot, basically, and it worked. The action was pretty big at the end. It worked. But they kind of blew their load in the first film, announcing Transformers to the whole world. They should have stayed with the robots in disguise thing and dragged that out for a while and kept the battles, if not low-key, at least in low-key locations where they could have been covered up and so forth. But they just started off, they got to that level in the first film, they just stayed there for the rest of the films, and each film was just too much. It was just battle, endless battle after endless battle with no build-up, no character, no heart, no nothing, just a big metal fest. For 2 hours, and it was just too much for people. It was just mind-numbing. And the films did eventually stop made less money, and that scared Michael Bay and that. So they eventually did what was supposed to be a prequel. Well, the prequel was supposed to be a reboot, a soft reboot, where they went back in time, and I think the idea was they were going to reboot it, and if it went well, they'd make a bunch of films and then just continue them on and pretend like the Michael Bay films didn't happen. But Michael Bay didn't like that, because Michael Bay makes a lot of money out of the licensing for the new Transformers, which is why none of the original Transformers appear in any of the Transformers films, even though they use the names. And that was the most confusing thing in the first film. Like, why don't they look like the Transformers? Why don't they look like the characters? But we were too excited just to have real live-action Transformers that we didn't really realise that they had that licensing issue again, like they have with Star Trek and other things, where they just get the names and the use of them, and then they just make their own new canon and their own new characters, and they disregard everything that the fans actually want and expect, and they do their own thing so they can get all the money and merchandising and all that from licensing their version of the characters or their characters they've created. So we never really got a real Transformers movie. The first film kind of started off like that. But yeah, so Bumblebee was good. I did a video before, and I can't remember if I already said this or not, but they basically marketed it like a kid's film, and it was really hard to find. Now, I saw the first Transformers film like 5 or 6 times, and I spent thousands of dollars. I bought all the merchandise. I loved it. Second film sucked. The later films suck. They tried to soft reboot a little bit during that series after Shia LaBeouf left, and they had Mark Wahlberg come in, and they tried to focus on the characters a bit more and give it a bit of heart and a bit of a build-up, but it didn't take them long to get to that level of ridiculousness that they were at with the action. And the next film was, the Knights, and just, it was... I watched that film once and never again, and I was really, really excited to hear that it was bombing and that they were going to do the reboot and all that. And like I said, saw Bumblebee, loved it, saw it a couple of times, had trouble finding it because it was showing on basically daytimes. It wasn't really screening like a normal film. It was like being treated like a kiddie film, and there was like no merchandise. I mean, it took me forever. There was just some colouring in books and some really kiddie little toys, and it took me forever just to find an actual like Bumblebee, which I got back there, and the steelbook of the DVD, and that's like all the merchandise I have, the whole film. I can't speak right now, I don't know why. But yeah, I was really hoping they'd do a sequel, and then they announced they were going to do a Beast Wars film, and I was like, oh god, no, hell no, please, no. They were just going in the right direction. Why are they doing this? They're going the absolute opposite direction they should go. But now they seem to be doing some sort of variation of it now, where this is it's not based in primitive times. It's based in 1994, so it's like 6 years after Bumblebee. So they've still got some room to go back and do some films right after Bumblebee if they want. And they've still got a decade or so before those other films that are supposed to be canon happen. I think 14 years. The first film was in 2007, so they've got 13 years. And this film, it's going to feature some Generation 1 characters, and they're suggesting they're actually going to go with the Generation 1 modes. So there's Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Mirage, and Bumblebee is going to be... I think it was like an off-road Camaro or something, so they're saying that's a dune buggy. I'm like a very gay guy. I don't know anything about cars or sports, so I don't know what sort of car that was. But he did appear as one for a minute in Bumblebee, if I remember, so I think they're going to go with that. And they've got Mirage as a Porsche, and they've got RC, and apparently they're going to have 3 members of the Beast Wars Transformers. So they were talking about Terracons, Predacons, and Maximals. My understanding was Maximals were the ones in Beast Wars. Terracons were sort of later Generation 1, and Predacons were, of course, Season 3 of the original cartoon, and after the movie, sort of, when they jumped to what year was it? 2005? Yeah. So it sounds like they're going to just use the Beast Wars characters in the Transformers movie, so it's not actually going to be a Beast Wars movie where they show them like crash on Earth and become Dinobots and have their own sort of war back then. So that's kind of promising. It seems like they just want to get the Beast Wars fans into the movies, and they're going to try and just include the characters to do that. And how they're going to do that, I don't know. How they're going to do that in 1994. The film's set in Brooklyn and Peru, so I have no idea how they're going to do this, and part of me is smelling disaster, another part of me is feeling like, well, they're doing some variation, so it can't be as bad as the actual Beast Wars series and everything. So I really don't know what's going to happen with it, but I just really wish they would just do, because they in their statement they said they had exhausted the Autobots and Decepticons conflict. They barely touched on it because they didn't go into it in any depth. They just had giant overblown battles every 2 minutes, and there's a lot of the lore that they didn't really get into, which they could do. So there's a lot they could still do with that, especially if it's based before the movies where it went too far. So part of me is feeling optimistic. Another part of me is feeling like, no, they're not going to take advantage of this time. They're not going to do a good job of it. It's going to be a mess. Apparently the villain is Scourge, who's an orange and black, giant orange and black Decepticon who takes the symbols of his victims in battle and puts them on his body, and there's a bit of information about him. The aside from Optimus Primal, which I don't know how they're going to have Optimus Prime and Optimus Primal in the same movie, they're only featuring 2 other Beast Wars characters, Rhinox and... what was the other one's name? My computer's freezing up on me. Of course it is. They only mentioned 2 by name, so apparently they're only using the 3 so far. As far as we know, they're only using 3 characters from Beast Wars. I think one of them is a Falcon, or did they mention one called Falcon? I don't know them by name. It's not like the other Transformers where I would know exactly who and what it is. Yeah... I don't know what to think. I'm more optimistic now because they're not making a straight Beast Wars film, but I'm still not sure they're going to do a good job of it. And it just seems like too much. They just needed to stay with what they had. The reason why Bumblebee worked so well was they just had a couple of Autobots and a human, and it was like, a boy in their car or a girl in their car. That worked. Now, if they bring in a lot of whole other factions, it's just going to get too big too quick, and they just go too big, they try too hard, and it's just, keep it simple, stupid was what worked for Bumblebee, but they're not smart enough to stay with that, I don't think. So I don't know what to think about this. I'm more optimistic, but I'm still not optimistic, and I'm just going to be sitting here waiting for a year to see what happens. It may be the first Transformers film I don't go and see, because if I do see it, I'll probably see I'll buy a ticket for a different film and then sneak in to see this. So someone else gets my money, but I actually can see it, so I can criticize it and see if it's any good. But yeah, why couldn't they just do a couple of sequels to Bumblebee? Just in the 80s, late 80s, just stay there for a while, have some fun. But no, they can't just give us what we want. Apparently, it's just a rule now in all the franchises. Don't give the fans what they want. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this can work? I don't know.